Well, as I mentioned, we got data yesterday that we want to look at this morning. The new report by the Winnipeg Police says there's been a drastic increase in violent crime in the city. That's just part of a large report looking at all kinds of different things. Overall, crime is down actually year over year. But when you look at these details, I'm not lightly using the word drastic, because last year when it comes to violent crime, there were 15,074 crimes reported to police. Year over year, there were 11,469 reports. That was the year before. So if you look at the 5-year average for violent crime, this is a number that is easy to absorb. It's up 31.4%. So we wondered how safe people feel in the city. CBC's Jim Agapito took to the streets of the West End because in the interactive map and these stats, and you can go to the police's website, you can click on every neighborhood and you can see what's going on by the stats. Jim headed to the West End because it's an area that had among the highest number of crimes reported. And he asked some people there what they're seeing in their daily lives.
Jay Aaron. I've had my car vandalized and things like that, but nothing like, no physical altercations or anything scary like that. Just growing up in the area, I can't say I've seen an increase. It's kind of been the same stuff over and over again. And I feel like it would be nice to have more police support, more people watching, that kind of thing, especially in an area like this where it has been going up.
Do you feel safe living in the area?
Because I've grown up in it, yes. You know, it's home. It's never felt like it's been a burden to me. I do feel like, you know, a lot of the times my friends or colleagues will kind of struggle coming into the area just because they know there's such a high crime rate here.
Wayne Sidorsky.
Have you ever been a victim of crime?
Who hasn't?
What happened?
Been jumped.
With that being said, what do you think is contributing to that kind of crime that you experienced?
Lack of resources.
What do you think about policing then in the area?
Useless. They don't do anything.
Do you feel safe living in this area?
I don't go looking for trouble, and I've been fine.
It's interesting how quickly he answered the question, have you been a victim of crime, and simply said, who hasn't? Jim Agapito headed out to the streets of the West End yesterday just to talk to some Winnipeggers about their daily lives and how crime factors in. That is because that neighborhood is represented in the stats as one of the places where they had the highest number of crimes reported. So these stats are from Winnipeg Police. As I mentioned, there's been a surge in violent crime. Now, included, though, in that increase is youth crime. On average, in these stats, in the last 5 years, violent youth crimes have increased 43.4%. Youth crime involving a weapon has doubled since 2021, with youth accounting for 1 in every 5 people charged with a weapons crime. And in 2023, just to look at how young some people are in these stats represented, how young some of these kids are, 77 youth were younger than 12 years old at the time of the offense. That means they could not be charged under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. Now, Kent Dueck is here to talk about the statistics and also to talk about where we go from here. Kent is founder of Inner City Youth Alive, which is a Christian-based center in Winnipeg. He's been working with at-risk teens for nearly 40 years. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So I saw you reacting to some of the numbers I was saying and to hearing some of the residents. What did you think when you saw, looked through this report?
I mean, on a certain level, there's no surprise. It was sort of an affirmation of what we know sort of anecdotally. And also, you know, when I think about the number of conversations that we have in terms of debriefing violent incidents that staff have been intervening in or hearing stories in the community, it maps onto what we're hearing in the community perfectly. So not surprised, but also it's so concerning.
So it reflects what you've been seeing at the grassroots level in your work.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I think that when we talk to community members as well, you get a sense of just a higher level of sort of vigilance and tension in the community. And a while back I was driving down Salter, witnessed a mom that I've known for years almost get assaulted with a bat, picked her up, and, you know, she kind of shakes it off, and I drop her off at work. And so it's almost, you know, it was traumatizing, but she's just sort of almost normalized what could have almost happened there. So one of the things that concerns me is that we don't want to get to the point of normalizing this negative kind of trend. Is
that what you had sort of, and tell me if I'm reading into this, but I saw you have a reaction when we just heard that gentleman in the West End say.
Who hasn't?
Yeah.
No, that's, it's crazy. Again, just a while back, there was a young man that was stabbed in the head with a screwdriver for the crime of waiting at a bus stop. And so I sat with him and we were going, like, looking at his wounds and kind of helping him work through that. And I was just amazed at how, he just took it in stride. I couldn't believe how he just thought, well, this is what happens, right?
Um, your organization, Inner City Youth Alive, as I mentioned, has been in the community for nearly 40 years. What changes have you noticed in the most recent years when it comes to teen violence and maybe also to weapons? Because that's reflected highly in this report.
Yeah, well, seeing that knife crimes up 21% is not a surprise. I think we've noticed that a lot of kids just carry a weapon. And even the good kids, you know, we had an incident a while back where we took a knife off of a 10-year-old. And when I debriefed it with him, you know, he was in tears saying, I was walking with my sisters. I felt I had to carry a knife. I was trying to protect myself, right? So he had no intent of hurting anyone, but, you know, it came to our attention, so we had to deal with it. And so when you have, you know, if you have everyone that kind of feels like, you know, the good kids that feel like I kind of have to carry something to protect myself, then, you know, it kind of just has a snowball effect.
How easy is it to get weapons?
Oh, so easy. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of like, you know, knives, that's just the easiest thing to get your hands on. You know, you see the uptick with guns as well. And that obviously points to the fact that there's a little bit of easier access. So yeah, it's kind of understood.
Drugs. I'm looking at numbers in this report now. So drugs, the year change, drug crimes were up 10.9%. Now, over the 5-year average, they're actually down by 19%, but year over year, they're up 10. What role do you think drug use plays into what we're seeing when it comes to violent crime?
It's massive. Like, I think meth is a game changer in that the crimes are, you know, somebody who's maybe in psychosis and commits a heinous act and would never have done that if it wasn't for meth, or somebody who's dope sick and has to get another hit, and people will do things when they're dope sick that they would never do in their you know, in their right mind. So you know, and then enforcement as well. You know that if you're running drug trade, crime, like violence is basically that's a way of enforcing. So there's a bunch of ways that drugs are impacting this data.
Earlier this year, police launched something called Project Surge. So that intended to take a closer look at youth crime. And during the project, they identified a group of 117 young people that they said are responsible for 1,795 police incidents. What do you think that says about the types of crime we're seeing right now? And is that, I guess, trying to get a sense of repeat offenders versus, you know, how widespread the problems are? I'm not sure if you can respond to that, Kent.
It's a good question. I'm really torn on this one, because what you see there is a trend that you see across Canada. I know in Vancouver, there's like handful, 157 individuals that committed over 4,000 violent offenses. And so if you're going to, if you just think about it, you have an individual who is given to violence, and they commit that act, and they say to police, which they always do, this is what I hear from the police, the most common phrase is, I'll be out before you're off shift. So there's zero consequence for the crime they commit. They're out again. So there's been nothing saying, you know, I shouldn't do this again. There's no deterrent, nothing that sort of breaks the cycle. And so, you know, and then you have that individual, you know, if you track it, like I always want to sort of humanize the data, right? So if you think about that individual who committed that act and did it, you know, without remorse, and I heard from a youth in the Manitoba Youth Center. He told me that people don't understand how violent some kids are, and so I think we have to, you know, open our eyes to the reality that this can be really violent, and so then that kid is out in the community now. He's had no deterrent, nothing holding him back. And what's stopping him from committing it again? And then you start to get this snowball thing. I can't even imagine, you know, like 1,700 offenses by 117 youth. That means, you know, again, to humanize it, there's how many victims are there behind those incidents? Having
said that, if they're back in a community, are those kids also finding supports, those teenagers? Or is that also just a, you know, something that we're behind in terms of, with respect to obviously the work that you do, not being able to keep up with the number of kids that might need those supports?
I think there's definitely not enough supports, and it's so sad. You know, when you see youth released, and then often the condition isn't even that they attend school. the condition isn't, like that. They find they have a support system, and so they're kind of thrown into a setting where they're just drawn in. The pull of the community just draws them into their past patterns.
I want to ask you as a last question, what do you think needs to happen moving forward to change the stats we're talking about this morning? And also, you can weigh in as well, because we're about to have a new police chief. So I wonder if you want to weigh in on what we need in that person.
Well, back in the 90s, when we started this interagency anti-gang coalition, and we were courageous about steps we took. We didn't put up with things and that was a community-wide agencies. And so we do have to have a community-wide approach, and we have to be courageous. People are sort of tentative when they talk about this, just don't know what to do, don't know how to talk about it, don't know how to address the issues. And I think the one low-key argument I would have with some statements I've read in the Free Press from police is that we cannot arrest our way out of this. I would push back and say I think we can arrest our way out of about 80% of it, because just look at that data. Those 117 youth, they need to be contained and cared for. And I'm not talking lock them up and throw away the key. I'm talking we need to also take a look at our prison systems and what services, how are kids dealing with their trauma when they're incarcerated. There's so much we could do to improve what happens if you have to incarcerate a kid, to help them heal and help them, because violence is the sound that pain makes. So people are kind of acting out of their own trauma.
Appreciate having you in today. I know that you last time you were in, you invited CBC to Inner City Youth Alive to be a community studio. So we'll take you up on that at some point for sure, and get surrounded by the young people you work with. Appreciate it.
Look forward to that, Marcia. Thank you.
That's Kent Dueck, founder of Inner City Youth Alive, with us live on CBC. So if you want to read more about the stats, it's an extensive report. You can find it embedded in the story on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.